The bridge of the human ship Endeavour was quiet except for the soft hum of machines. Captain Sarah Chen stood near the main view screen watching the stars. Her crew worked at their stations, checking systems and running normal operations. Everything seemed peaceful until the air in the center of the bridge began to shimmer. Bright lights appeared from nowhere. The lights grew brighter and took shape. Within seconds, 5 tall figures stood where empty space had been moments before. The human crew stepped back in surprise. Some reached for their weapons but stopped when Captain Chen raised her hand. The aliens were unlike anything humans had ever seen. They stood nearly 8 feet tall with bodies covered in what looked like living crystal. Their skin reflected the bridge lights, creating rainbow patterns across their forms. They had 4 arms each, and their heads were larger than human heads with huge compound eyes that seemed to see everything at once. The leader stepped forward. His crystal skin was a deeper blue than the others, and small lights pulsed beneath his surface. When he spoke, his voice came through the ship's communication system, translated into perfect English. "I am Ambassador Kextal of the Zephyrian Collective," he said. His voice was smooth but cold. "We have come to welcome humanity to the galactic community." Captain Chen stepped forward, keeping her hands visible and peaceful. She wore her standard military uniform with her service pistol holstered at her side. The weapon was a simple projectile firearm, standard issue for human space forces. "Welcome aboard the Endeavour," Chen said. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Fleet. We are honored to meet you." Kextal's compound eyes focused on the pistol at Chen's hip. His head tilted slightly, and then he made a sound that the translator turned into laughter. He spoke quickly to his companions in their own language. The translation came through a moment later. "How amusing," Kextal said to his team. "They still use chemical combustion for their weapons. Look at that primitive device. It actually burns powder to throw small pieces of metal." The other Zephyrians also made laughing sounds. One of them pointed at Chen's weapon and spoke. "Do they really think such crude tools will serve them in space? What happens when they run out of the burning powder?" Chen felt her jaw tighten, but she kept her voice calm. "Our weapons serve us well. We have defended ourselves successfully for thousands of years." "Defended yourselves from what?" Kextal asked, his tone making it clear he thought the question was silly. "From other humans using the same primitive technology? How wonderful for you." The ambassador walked around the bridge, examining the human equipment with obvious disdain. He stopped at the weapons control station and looked at the displays showing the ship's armaments. The Endeavour carried standard human weapons: missile launchers, projectile cannons, and defensive systems. "Missiles that fly through space and explode," Kextal said, reading the displays. "Cannons that shoot metal bullets. Even your largest weapons work the same way as that tiny device on your hip. You burn something to make other things move fast." He turned back to Chen. "Captain, I must ask you a serious question. How do you expect to survive in a galaxy where real civilizations exist? Your entire military is based on technology that became obsolete millions of years ago." Chen's science officer, Lieutenant Torres, stepped forward. "Ambassador, our technology may seem simple, but it has proven effective. We have solved many complex problems with these basic principles." Kextal looked at Torres with what might have been pity. "Young human, you do not understand. In the galaxy, there are races that control pure energy. There are civilizations that can move matter with their thoughts. There are species that build weapons from the fabric of space itself." He gestured to his own body. "We Zephyrians gave up primitive projectile weapons before your species learned to make fire. Our warriors carry weapons that tear holes in reality. Our ships are protected by shields that can stop the energy of an entire star." One of his companions spoke up. "Show them, Ambassador." Kextal nodded and raised one of his 4 arms. A small device appeared in his hand, seemingly from nowhere. The device looked like a crystal sculpture, beautiful and complex. He pointed it at an empty section of the bridge wall. A beam of purple light shot from the device. Where it touched the wall, the metal simply disappeared. Not melted or burned, but completely gone. A perfect hole appeared, edges smooth as glass. "This is a molecular disruptor," Kextal explained. "It removes the bonds that hold matter together. Your bullets would never reach a target because they would cease to exist long before impact." The humans stared at the hole in their wall. Chen realized that the beam had cut through 3 layers of the ship's hull. If they had been in deep space, the breach would have been catastrophic. "Impressive," Chen admitted. "But different does not always mean better. Sometimes simple solutions work when complex ones fail." Kextal made the laughing sound again. Captain, you are brave but foolish. Simple solutions work only against simple problems. When you face real technology, your fire sticks will be useless. He walked to the center of the bridge and faced the entire human crew. I am here to offer you a choice. The Galactic Council has decided that humanity may join our community, but only under specific conditions. Chen waited for him to continue. First, you must surrender all of your weapons technology to us for examination and disposal. We cannot allow such dangerous primitives to exist in civilized space. Dangerous? Chen asked. You just called them primitive and useless. Dangerous because they are primitive, Kextal explained. When children play with sharp sticks, someone gets hurt. When primitive species play with explosive weapons, entire worlds can be damaged. He continued his list. Second, you must accept client species status under Zephyrian protection. We will provide you with proper technology and guide your development. And third, Chen asked, though she suspected she would not like the answer. Third, you must abandon any pretense of military independence. Your species will serve in support roles only. Fighting will be left to those who understand real warfare. The bridge was completely silent. Every human present understood what they were hearing. The aliens were not offering friendship or partnership. They were demanding surrender. Chen took a deep breath. Ambassador, I appreciate your offer, but I cannot make such decisions alone. I will need to discuss this with my superiors. Of course, Kextal said. You have one of your months to decide. We will wait at the edge of your system. He gestured to his team and they began to glow with the same light that had brought them. Captain, I hope you will be reasonable. Your weapons are museum pieces. Your ships are barely functional. Your entire military could not stop a single Zephyrian patrol vessel. The lights grew brighter. Accept our offer, and your species will have a place in the galaxy. Refuse, and you will learn why advanced civilizations do not take primitive races seriously. The aliens disappeared in a flash of light, leaving only the smell of ozone and the hole in the wall as proof they had been there. Chen looked around at her crew. She saw fear in some faces, anger in others, but she also saw determination. Lieutenant Torres, she said quietly, send a message to Earth Fleet Command. Priority 1. Tell them we need to talk. As the crew returned to their stations, Chen stared at the hole in the wall. The aliens thought humans were primitive and weak. They had made that very clear. But Chen had spent her entire career learning that underestimating your opponent was the first step toward defeat. She touched her sidearm and smiled grimly. The Zephyrians had no idea what humans were capable of when they were truly threatened. Admiral Marcus Webb stood in the war room of Luna Station, Earth's most advanced military facility. The room was filled with holographic displays showing star maps, ship positions, and tactical data. 3 weeks had passed since the Zephyrian visit to the Endeavor, and the situation had grown much worse. Webb was a veteran of the Outer Colony Wars, a man who had spent 40 years learning how to fight with limited resources against superior enemies. His gray hair and weathered face showed the stress of command, but his eyes remained sharp and focused. Show me the current positions, Webb ordered. The main display lit up with a 3-dimensional map of human space. Red dots marked the locations of Zephyrian ships. There were dozens of them, positioned at key points around Earth's territory. Each ship was massive, easily 10 times larger than humanity's largest vessels. They're not hiding, reported Intelligence Officer Torres, who had been transferred from the Endeavor. They want us to see them. They want us to know we're surrounded. Webb studied the display. The alien ships formed a perfect blockade. Nothing could enter or leave human space without their permission. They had effectively trapped humanity in their own solar systems. What about their communications? Webb asked. Torres activated another display. That's the worst part, sir. They're not just talking to us. They're broadcasting to the entire galaxy. The screen showed intercepted alien communications. Most of it was in languages humans did not understand, but the translation software could handle Zephyrian and several other common galactic tongues. Listen to this, Torres said, playing a recording. A Zephyrian voice spoke with obvious amusement. Fellow civilizations, we bring you entertainment from the edge of known space. We have discovered a primitive species that still uses chemical explosives for their weapons. They actually burn powder to throw small pieces of metal at their enemies. Laughter sounds came from what seemed to be multiple different species. The voice continued. We have generously offered to help them join galactic society, but they seem confused. Perhaps they do not understand that their fire sticks are useless against real technology. More laughter filled the recording. We will demonstrate proper warfare methods soon. It should be educational for all species considering contact with primitive races. Webb felt his anger growing. The aliens were not just demanding surrender. They were humiliating humanity in front of the entire galaxy. They were treating Earth's defenders like an amusing curiosity. Are there more of these broadcasts? Webb asked. Hundreds, Torres replied. They're treating this like entertainment. Some alien social networks are running betting pools on how quickly we'll surrender. She activated another display showing what appeared to be alien internet forums. The translation software worked on most of the text. Look at this one, Torres said, pointing to a particular post. The powder burners think their little metal throwers can hurt real warships. This will be over in minutes when the demonstration begins. Another post read, I have studied human warfare. They still use weapons based on controlled explosions. My hatchlings play with more advanced toys. The mockery went on and on. Aliens from across the galaxy were laughing at humanity's weapons, tactics, and technology. Some were even sharing crude drawings showing humans with ancient flintlock pistols trying to fight energy weapons. Sir, said a new voice from the back of the room. May I speak? Webb turned to see Dr. Lisa Nakamura, Earth's chief weapons engineer. She was a small woman with intense eyes who had spent the last decade working on advanced military projects. Dr. Nakamura, what's your assessment of our situation? She stepped forward, carrying a tablet filled with technical data. Admiral, our conventional weapons are indeed inferior to what the Zephyrians have shown us. Their energy weapons, force fields, and armor systems are far beyond our current technology. Webb's shoulders sagged slightly. He had hoped she might have better news. However, Dr. Nakamura continued, I believe they have made a critical error in their analysis of human capabilities. What do you mean? They have focused entirely on our current weapon systems. They see our gunpowder-based firearms and our explosive missiles, and they assume that represents the limit of human ingenuity. She activated her tablet and shared its contents with the room's main display. Technical diagrams appeared, showing complex machinery and mathematical equations. For the past 8 months, ever since we first detected alien signals, a team of scientists has been working on Project Thunderbolt. We suspected that first contact might not go well, so we began developing alternatives to conventional weapons. Webb leaned forward. What kind of alternatives? The Zephyrians are correct that chemical explosives have limitations, Dr. Nakamura explained. But they have made a false assumption. They believe that because we use gunpowder now, we are incapable of understanding more advanced principles. She gestured to the diagrams. They failed to consider that humans have always been excellent at taking simple concepts and scaling them to extreme levels. I don't understand, Webb said. Admiral, what is a gun? A device that uses an explosion to propel a projectile, Webb answered automatically. Exactly. But what if we could propel a projectile without explosions? What if we could make it move much, much faster than any chemical reaction could achieve? The diagrams on the screen shifted, showing a long tube surrounded by electromagnetic coils. This is a magnetic acceleration cannon, also called a coilgun. Instead of using gunpowder to push a bullet, we use magnetic fields. Very powerful magnetic fields, Webb studied the design. How fast can it shoot? With sufficient power, we can accelerate a projectile to 15% the speed of light. The room went completely silent. Webb stared at the numbers on the screen. 15% of light speed? He said slowly. That's roughly 45,000 kilometers per second, Dr. Nakamura confirmed. At that velocity, a small tungsten rod becomes more destructive than a nuclear weapon. Webb began to understand. The Zephyrians are expecting us to use gunpowder and explosives. Yes, their shields and armor are designed to stop energy weapons and conventional projectiles. But nothing can stop solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. The laws of physics make it impossible. How close are you to having a working system? Dr. Nakamura smiled for the first time. Admiral, we completed the first prototype last week. The Defiance has been selected for retrofit. Webb looked at the technical data again. The power requirements were enormous, but the design was elegant in its simplicity. Take the basic concept of throwing rocks at your enemies and scale it up to near light speed. What about the power source? That was the main challenge, Dr. Nakamura admitted. A single shot requires the entire output of a fusion reactor for several seconds. We had to design new power systems and energy storage methods. But it works? Computer simulations show it should work perfectly. The only question is whether the Zephyrians will give us a chance to test it in real combat. Webb stood and walked to the main display, studying the positions of the alien ships. They were so confident in their superiority that they had positioned themselves within easy range of human weapons. Of course, they thought human weapons were harmless. How long to complete the retrofit? Webb asked. 72 hours, Dr. Nakamura replied. We've been working around the clock. Webb made his decision. Do it. Get the Defiance ready for combat. Admiral, Torres interrupted. The Zephyrians gave us 1 month. We have less than a week left. Then we'll use every day we have, Webb said firmly. Dr. Nakamura, I want progress reports every 6 hours. Torres, keep monitoring their communications. If they change their positions or behavior, I want to know immediately. He turned to address the entire room. People, we are about to attempt something that has never been done before. We are going to fight a superior enemy using principles they do not understand. The staff began moving to their stations, energized by having a plan. Sir, Torres said quietly, what if the Coilgun doesn't work? What if their technology can somehow stop it? Webb looked at the alien broadcasts still playing on the screens. The mocking laughter continued, with new jokes being shared across the galaxy about humanity's primitive fire sticks. Then we'll find out what happens when you underestimate humans, Webb said grimly. They think we're stuck in the past using ancient technology. They have no idea that sometimes the oldest solutions, properly applied, are the most devastating of all. Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the command chair of the frigate Defiance as her ship drifted through the asteroid field of Kepler 442. The rocky debris provided perfect cover for what was about to happen. In 3 days, the Zephyrian ultimatum would expire, and the aliens had made it clear they intended to make an example of humanity. The Defiance looked exactly like any other human warship from the outside. The same gray hull, the same weapon ports, the same communication arrays. But inside, everything had changed. The ship's entire structure had been rebuilt around the most advanced weapon humanity had ever created. Captain, reported Lieutenant Kim Park from the weapons station, all systems show green. The Coilgun is ready for firing. Vasquez nodded, keeping her expression calm despite the tension she felt. Park was young, barely 25, but she had trained for weeks on the new system. The weapon that could determine humanity's survival rested in her hands. Sensors? Vasquez asked. Zephyrian hunter-killer approaching from bearing 270, replied Ensign Martinez. IFF signature matches the void render, Commander Thexva commanding. Vasquez smiled grimly. Thexva had been one of the most vocal aliens in the galaxy-wide broadcasts mocking human weapons. He had personally requested permission to capture the first human vessel, claiming it would be an amusing way to demonstrate Zephyrian superiority. Perfect, Vasquez said. He wants to be famous. Let's help him with that. The void render was enormous, stretching over 1 kilometer in length. Its hull was covered in crystalline armor that reflected the light of nearby stars. Energy weapon ports lined its sides like glowing eyes, and the ship moved with the confidence of a predator that had never faced real opposition. They're hailing us, reported Communications Officer Chen. Put them through. The main screen activated, showing Commander Thexva on his bridge. The Zephyrian commander was larger than Ambassador Kextal, with darker crystal skin and more pronounced ridges along his head. His forearms gestured dismissively as he spoke. Human vessel, you are in violation of Galactic Council directives. Prepare to be boarded for inspection and confiscation of your primitive weapons. Vasquez stood and faced the screen. Commander Thexva, I am Captain Elena Vasquez of the Earth Defense Fleet. We do not recognize the authority of your Galactic Council. Thexva's compound eyes seemed to sparkle with amusement. Captain Vasquez, your defiance is admirable but pointless. My ship carries enough firepower to destroy your entire fleet. Your little metal throwers cannot even penetrate our shields. He gestured to his own weapons officer. Perhaps a demonstration would help you understand your situation. A beam of purple energy lanced out from the void render, striking a nearby asteroid. The rock, easily 100 meters across, simply vaporized. One moment it was there, the next it was expanding gas and dust. That was our lowest power setting, Thexva said casually. Our main weapons could crack a moon. What exactly do you think your gunpowder toys can do against such power? Vasquez pretended to consider this. You make a compelling argument, Commander. Our weapons do seem rather limited compared to yours. Finally, you begin to understand, Thexva said. Lower your shields and prepare for boarding. We will examine your weapon systems and add them to our Museum of Primitive Technology. The void render moved closer, its massive bulk blocking out the stars. Vasquez could see smaller ships detaching from the main vessel, preparing to dock with the Defiance. Captain, Park whispered from her station. They're within optimal range. Vasquez checked her tactical display. The Zephyrian ship was less than 10,000 kilometers away, close enough that even their advanced sensors would have trouble tracking a small projectile moving at relativistic speeds. Commander Thexva, Vasquez said, before we surrender, I have one question. Speak quickly, human. My patience grows thin. You've spent a lot of time telling the galaxy how primitive our weapons are, but have you actually studied human history? Thexva looked confused. What relevance does your history have? You are a young species with simple technology. Simple, yes, Vasquez agreed. But humans have always been very good at one thing, killing other humans. We've spent thousands of years perfecting the art of warfare. She walked closer to the screen. You see, Commander, humans understand something that many advanced species seem to have forgotten. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the most effective. Your philosophy is irrelevant, Thexva said dismissively. Simple solutions work only against simple problems. When you face real technology, your primitive approaches fail. That's where you're wrong, Vasquez said quietly. You think that because we use gunpowder now, we're incapable of understanding advanced principles. But humans have always been excellent at taking basic concepts and scaling them to extreme levels. Park looked up from her station, waiting for the order. What are you talking about? Thexva demanded. I'm talking about throwing rocks, Vasquez said. Humans have been throwing rocks at their enemies since we lived in caves. It's the oldest weapon in our arsenal. Thexva made the Zephyrian laughing sound. Rocks! Captain, your desperation is showing. Are you planning to throw asteroids at my ship? Not asteroids, Vasquez said. Something much smaller. Much faster. The alien commander was still laughing when Vasquez gave the order. Fire. The Defiance didn't flash with muzzle fire or launch visible missiles. There was no explosion. No dramatic light show. Instead, the ship's hull hummed with barely contained electromagnetic energy. For a fraction of a second, the ship's entire power grid channeled through the coilgun array. The magnetic coils along the ship's spine activated in perfect sequence, each one adding more velocity to the tungsten projectile racing through the barrel. By the time the rod left the ship, it was moving at 15% the speed of light. The tungsten projectile was only as long as a pencil and no thicker than a human thumb. But at 45,000 kilometers per second, it carried the kinetic energy of a small nuclear weapon. Commander Thexva was still speaking when the rod struck his ship. The Void Render's shields, designed to stop energy weapons and conventional projectiles, might as well have been made of paper. The tungsten rod passed through them without slowing down. It hit the ship's crystalline armor and passed through that as well, and the hull behind it, and the decks inside, and the other side of the ship. The projectile spent less than a microsecond inside the Void Render, but that was enough. The kinetic energy transferred to the ship's structure was enormous. The kilometer-long vessel simply came apart. There was no explosion, no fireball, no dramatic death scene. The Void Render just stopped being a ship and became an expanding cloud of plasma and debris, where moments before a massive warship had dominated the space around them. Now only glowing gas remained. Thexva's final words were cut off mid-syllable. His image disappeared from the screen, replaced by static. The bridge of the Defiance was completely silent. Even though they had known what to expect, seeing it happen was still shocking. A ship 10 times their size had been destroyed in an instant by a weapon no larger than a pencil. Target destroyed, Park reported quietly. No debris larger than a few meters detected. Vasquez sat back down in her command chair. Send a message to Admiral Webb, tell him the test was successful. What about the other Zephyrian ships? Martinez asked. They'll have detected the destruction of the Void Render. Let them detect it, Vasquez said. Let them try to figure out what happened. She looked at the expanding cloud of gas that had once been the most advanced warship in the Zephyrian fleet. They wanted to see human weapons in action. They wanted to demonstrate to the galaxy how primitive we are. She smiled coldly. Well, they got their demonstration. I wonder what the galaxy will think of our primitive technology now. Across the Zephyrian fleet, Alarms began screaming as sensors detected the destruction of one of their most powerful vessels. Admiral Zexthu stared at his tactical display in complete disbelief. "What happened to the void render?" he demanded. "Unknown, Admiral," his sensor officer replied. "It just disappeared. No energy discharge detected from the human vessel. No missile launch. No weapon signature at all." "That's impossible," Zexthu said. "A ship doesn't just disappear." "Sir, the debris field is consistent with complete molecular disruption, but the energy required for such destruction would be enormous. The human ship shows no signs of having sufficient power." Zexthu studied the tactical display. The small human frigate sat quietly among the asteroids, looking exactly as harmless as it had before. But somehow it had just destroyed a kilometer-long battleship without any visible weapons discharge. "Get me Ambassador Kextal," Zexthu ordered, "and cancel all close approaches to human vessels. Something is very wrong here." For the first time since the Zephyrians had arrived in human space, they were the ones who were afraid. Admiral Zexthu stood on the command bridge of the Zephyrian flagship Eternal Dominion, staring at the tactical displays with growing confusion and anger. 3 hours had passed since the void render had been destroyed, and his scientists still could not explain what had happened. "Show me the sensor data again," Zexthu ordered his chief science officer. The holographic display activated, showing the moments before the void render's destruction. The massive Zephyrian warship appeared solid and confident, approaching the small human vessel. There was no visible weapons discharge, no energy buildup, no missile launch. One moment the ship existed, the next it was expanding plasma. "The human vessel shows no increase in energy output," the science officer reported. "No weapons activation, no shield fluctuations. According to our sensors, they did nothing." "Ships do not simply explode by themselves," Zexthu said angrily. "There must be something we missed." "Admiral," interrupted Communications Officer Vexital, "we are receiving urgent messages from the Galactic Council. Word of the void render's destruction has spread throughout civilized space." Zexthu's crystalline features darkened. "What are they saying?" "The other species are confused. Many are asking how a primitive race could destroy an advanced Zephyrian warship. Some are suggesting that we have been overestimating our own capabilities." The Admiral's forearms clenched into fists. For centuries, the Zephyrians had been the dominant military force in the galaxy. Their technology was unmatched, their ships undefeated. The idea that a primitive human vessel could destroy their most advanced warship was impossible to accept. "What is the status of our fleet?" Zexthu asked. "All ships have moved to maximum engagement range," his tactical officer reported. "No vessel is closer than 100,000 kilometers to any human ship." Zexthu nodded. Whatever weapon the humans had used, it seemed to require close range. By maintaining distance, his fleet would be safe while they figured out what had happened. "Sir," the communications officer spoke again, "the humans are transmitting on all frequencies." "What are they saying?" "They are claiming responsibility for the destruction of the void render. They say they used something called a kinetic impactor to destroy the ship." Zexthu studied the tactical display again. "A kinetic impactor? You mean they threw something at our ship?" "That appears to be their claim, Admiral. They say they accelerated a small projectile to extremely high velocity using magnetic fields." The science officer looked up from his calculations. "Admiral, such a weapon would be theoretically possible, but the power requirements would be enormous. The human ship is too small to generate sufficient energy. Unless," said another voice from the back of the bridge, "they designed the ship specifically for that purpose." Everyone turned to look at Junior Science Officer Kexra, a young Zephyrian who specialized in primitive technology studies. She approached the command area nervously. "Explain," Zexthu ordered. "Admiral, I have been studying human warfare for several months as part of my research into primitive species. Humans have always been unusually focused on projectile weapons." She activated her personal display, showing human weapons throughout history. They began with thrown spears and rocks. Then they invented mechanical devices to throw projectiles faster and farther: crossbows, catapults, ballistas. The display showed more advanced human weapons. Then they discovered chemical explosives and used them to propel projectiles even faster. "Guns, cannons, artillery? What is your point?" Zexthu asked impatiently. "Sir, what if they simply continued that progression? What if they found a way to throw projectiles much faster than chemical explosives could achieve?" The senior science officer scoffed. Even if they could accelerate a projectile to extreme velocities, our shields would stop it. Our armor would deflect it, would they? Kexra asked quietly. Our shields are designed to stop energy weapons. Our armor is built to resist plasma and laser fire. What if the humans are using something entirely different? She activated new calculations on her display. If a solid object moving at 15% light speed struck our ship, what would happen? The senior science officer began entering numbers into his computer. His expression changed as the results appeared. That's impossible, he said. The kinetic energy would be equivalent to a massive fusion bomb. And our shields? Zexthau asked. Useless. They're designed to deflect energy, not solid matter at relativistic speeds. Our armor? Also useless. Nothing can stop solid matter moving that fast. The laws of physics make it impossible. The bridge fell silent as the implications became clear. The humans had not defeated Zephyrian technology through superior advancement. They had simply found a way around it. Admiral, the tactical officer spoke urgently. Long-range sensors are detecting movement in the human fleet. Multiple ships are changing position. The main display showed the tactical situation. Human ships throughout the system were moving, taking new positions that would give them clear firing lanes at the Zephyrian fleet. How many of their ships have been modified? Zexthau asked. Unknown, sir. We assumed all human vessels were equally primitive. Zexthau studied the positions. The humans were spreading out, ensuring that each ship had a clear shot at a Zephyrian target. They were preparing for battle. Admiral, Communications Officer Vextal reported. We are receiving a transmission from the human flagship. Put it through. The main screen activated, showing Admiral Webb on the bridge of the human ship Retribution. The human looked calm and confident, very different from the confused primitives the Zephyrians had expected to face. Admiral Zexthau, Webb said, I believe we need to discuss the terms of your withdrawal from human space. Withdrawal? Zexthau sputtered. Human, you have destroyed one ship through some kind of trickery. You are still vastly outnumbered, are we? Webb asked. He gestured to someone off-screen. Lieutenant, show the Admiral our current tactical situation. The human display showed the positions of both fleets. 43 human ships faced 68 Zephyrian vessels. But now the human ships looked different on the display. Each one showed targeting solutions for multiple Zephyrian ships. Every ship in our fleet has been retrofitted with kinetic weapons, Webb explained. Your ships are large and slow, easy targets for projectiles moving at light speed. Zexthau felt a chill of fear. You're bluffing. Your ships cannot possibly generate enough power for such weapons. Admiral, Webb said quietly. Humans have been building bigger reactors for as long as we've been building weapons. When we decided to scale up our rock-throwing technology, we scaled up everything. He leaned forward in his command chair. Your ships are designed to fight enemies using energy weapons and missiles. You have shields and armor built for that kind of warfare. But you have no defense against solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. Our fleet is still larger than yours, Zexthau said, but his voice lacked confidence. Size doesn't matter when one shot can destroy any ship, Webb replied. Admiral, you came here to demonstrate Zephyrian superiority. You wanted to show the galaxy how advanced your technology is compared to our primitive weapons. Webb smiled coldly. Well, you've had your demonstration. The galaxy now knows that advanced shields and energy weapons are useless against a tungsten rod, moving at 45,000 kilometers per second. The transmission ended, leaving the Zephyrian bridge in stunned silence. Admiral, the sensor officer reported, human ships are powering up their reactor systems. Energy signatures are increasing rapidly. Zexthau looked at the tactical display. His fleet was trapped. If they advanced, the humans would destroy them with weapons they could not defend against. If they retreated, they would look weak in front of the entire galaxy. Sir, Junior Science Officer Kexra spoke quietly. There is something else. What? If the humans can build weapons like this, what else might they be capable of? We assumed they were primitive because they used gunpowder. But what if they have other technologies we haven't considered? Zexthau felt the weight of command pressing down on him. For the first time in his career, he was facing an enemy he did not understand and could not defeat. Communications, he ordered. Get me Ambassador Kextal, and prepare a message to the Galactic Council. What should the message say, Admiral? Zexthau stared at the human fleet, each ship now glowing with the power of weapons that could destroy his entire force. Tell them, he said slowly, "that we may have made a serious error in judgment about human capabilities." In the distance, the debris from the void render continued to expand, a glowing reminder that sometimes the oldest weapons, properly applied, were the most deadly of all. 6 months after the first coil gunshot changed everything, the Galactic Council chambers buzzed with nervous conversation. Representatives from dozens of species filled the vast circular hall, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, and translated voices. Ambassador Kextel stood at the Zephyrian delegation's table, his once proud crystalline form noticeably dimmed. The confidence that had marked his first meeting with humans was gone, replaced by careful humility. Across the chamber, Admiral Webb sat with the human delegation, calmly reviewing the proposed treaties. The past 6 months had been revolutionary for galactic politics. Word of the human victory had spread quickly through civilized space, followed by detailed sensor records of exactly what had happened. The galaxy had watched in amazement as humanity went from mocked primitives to feared equals in a single engagement. High Counselor Thexwan, an ancient being whose species had founded the Galactic Council millennia ago, called for order. The chamber fell silent as his translated voice echoed through the space. "We are here to discuss the formal recognition of humanity as a sovereign spacefaring civilization," Thexwan announced, "and to address the implications of their unique military capabilities." Webb stood when called upon. He wore a simple military uniform without decoration, but every being in the chamber knew who he was. He was the human who had humiliated the Zephyrian fleet without losing a single ship. "Honored counselors," Webb began, "humanity appreciates the opportunity to address this assembly. 6 months ago we were dismissed as primitives. Today we hope to join you as equals." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Vorthan representative, a being that looked like living liquid metal, spoke first. "Admiral Webb, your weapons have caused great concern throughout the galaxy. How do we know humanity will use such power responsibly?" Webb nodded, having expected this question. "Counselor, humans have been managing destructive weapons for thousands of years. We understand the responsibility that comes with power." He activated a holographic display showing technical diagrams. "Our coilgun technology is not mysterious or magical. It is simply the application of basic physics principles to military purposes." The Draconian representative, a massive reptilian being, leaned forward. "These weapons, the energy requirements must be enormous. How do you power such devices?" "The same way we power everything else," Webb replied. "We build bigger reactors. Humans have always been good at scaling up our technology when necessary." Kextal requested permission to speak. "Admiral, when we first met, we offered to share our advanced technology with humanity. In exchange, we asked you to abandon your primitive weapons. Now we see that your weapons are not primitive at all. Ambassador," Webb said carefully, "our weapons are exactly what they appear to be. Devices that throw projectiles at high velocity. The principle is as old as human civilization, but the application is new, yes, but the concept is ancient. We took the idea of throwing rocks and scaled it up to relativistic speeds." The chamber erupted in discussion. The idea that such devastating weapons could be based on throwing rocks was difficult for many species to accept. The ethereal representative, a being of pure energy contained in a crystalline matrix, spoke through harmonic frequencies. "Admiral Webb, your species was mocked for using chemical propulsion. Yet you have created weapons that render our most advanced defenses useless. How is this possible?" Webb walked to the center of the chamber where all delegates could see him clearly. "Honored beings, I think the galaxy has made a fundamental error in how it views technological advancement." He gestured to the assembled delegates. "You see our gunpowder weapons and assume we are primitive. You see our chemical rockets and think we are behind. But you fail to understand that humans approach technology differently than most species." The display changed, showing the progression of human weapons through history. "We do not abandon effective solutions when we find new ones. We improve them. We scale them up. We find new applications for old principles. Your coilgun technology proves this," the Aquarian representative gurgled through his translator. "You took the oldest human weapon and made it the most advanced in the galaxy." "Exactly," Webb confirmed. "While other species developed energy weapons and force fields, we continued perfecting projectile technology. Not because we couldn't understand energy weapons, but because we saw potential that others had overlooked. Kextal spoke again, his voice subdued. Admiral, our military analysts have studied your weapons extensively. They conclude that no existing defense can stop a projectile moving at relativistic speeds. That is correct, Webb admitted. But that is not a fault of your technology. It is simply physics. Mass times velocity squared. At sufficient speeds, any solid object becomes unstoppable. The High Counselor raised the appendage for attention. Admiral Webb, the Council must address a practical concern. If human weapons can destroy any ship instantly, what prevents humanity from conquering the galaxy? The chamber fell completely silent. This was the question every species had been thinking, but none had dared ask directly. Webb was quiet for a long moment before answering. Counselor, the same thing that has always prevented humanity from destroying itself completely. The understanding that ultimate weapons create ultimate responsibility. He looked around the chamber, meeting the gaze of as many delegates as possible. Humans have built weapons capable of destroying our own planet. We have had that capability for centuries, yet our planet still exists because we learned that power without restraint leads to extinction. But you could destroy our fleets, the Zephyrian delegate pressed. Yes, Webb said simply, just as you could sterilize our planets with your energy weapons, just as the Draconians could poison our atmosphere with their bioweapons, just as the Ethereals could disrupt our technology with their electromagnetic pulses. He gestured to encompass the entire chamber. Every species here has the power to cause tremendous destruction. The reason civilized space exists is that we all choose not to use that power irresponsibly. The Vorthon representative rippled thoughtfully. You are saying that your weapons, while devastating, do not change the fundamental balance of power? I am saying that weapons are tools, Webb replied. Their danger comes not from their capability, but from the intentions of those who wield them. Humanity seeks trade, cooperation, and peaceful coexistence. Our weapons exist to defend these goals, not to threaten others. High Counselor Thexwan consulted with his advisors before speaking. Admiral Webb, the Council has prepared a formal treaty recognizing human sovereignty and establishing trade relationships. However, there are concerns about your military technology spreading to other species. Webb nodded. Humanity is willing to sign non-proliferation agreements for our kinetic weapon technology, just as other species have done for their advanced systems. We understand that maintaining stability requires careful control of the most dangerous technologies. The negotiations continued for hours, but the outcome was never really in doubt. Humanity had proven they could not be dismissed or conquered. The galaxy would have to accept them as equals. Later, as the formal ceremonies concluded, Kextal approached Webb privately. Admiral, the Zephyrian said quietly, I must ask you something that has troubled me for months. Of course, Ambassador. When we first met, did you already know about these weapons? Were you deliberately allowing us to underestimate your capabilities? Webb considered the question carefully. Ambassador, the weapons existed in prototype form, but honestly, we were not sure they would work in actual combat. Then why did you seem so confident? Webb smiled slightly. Because humans have learned something over our long history of warfare. Never let your enemy know exactly what you are capable of. And never assume your enemy is incapable of surprises. Kextal's crystalline form flickered with what might have been amusement. A lesson we have learned rather expensively. The galaxy assumed that because humans use gunpowder we must be primitive, Webb said. But gunpowder was never the limit of human ingenuity. It was just the beginning. He looked out the chamber's windows at the stars beyond. You see, Ambassador, humans have always understood one fundamental truth about technology. The most effective weapon is the one your enemy doesn't expect. As the delegates departed, and the formal recognition of humanity spread throughout the galaxy, one thing became clear. The age of dismissing species based on their apparent technology level was over. The humans had proven that sometimes the oldest solutions, refined through millennia of warfare and enhanced by advanced engineering, could be the most devastating of all. In the depths of space, human ships patrolled the new borders of their territory. Their coilgun arrays remained silent but ready, a reminder that in the vast cosmos, being underestimated could be the greatest weapon of all. The galaxy would never again mistake human ingenuity for primitive simplicity. After all, it only takes one tungsten rod moving at light speed to change the entire balance of power in the universe.